Welcome to Psychic Evolution with evidential psychic medium Jamie Clark and spiritual coach and healer Maggie Clark.
And welcome back to another episode of Psychic Evolution. I'm Jamie Clark.
And I'm Maggie Clark, and this is a podcast where you discover your psychic potential within to empower yourself and manifest your psychic and mediumship gifts. And today we are super excited to bring on Jeffrey Carpenter. He is a new friend of ours in Arizona. He just opened a store called Dimensions of Heaven and Earth, and it's a spiritual center. It's a gorgeous space with a beautiful room for meditation, for classes, and also my astrology jewelry is in there. So if you guys want to shop, check out dimensionsofheavenanearth.com. They do ship, and there you can use a coupon code for 10% off called Spirit 10. We will put that in the show notes for you so that you can find that easily. And so Jeffrey has a very interesting story of going from a rocket scientist, an aerospace engineer, to a Reiki practitioner and a psychic and spirit medium. So we are so excited to hear how this transformation of going from rocket scientist to Reiki practitioner happened. So Jeff, can you tell us what was your spiritual awakening experience that led you to move away from rocket scientists in the military, serving your country, to a Reiki practitioner and a psychic and a spirit medium?
Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you for calling it interesting. I call it totally nuts. I mean, I never planned on it. I never thought about it. It is one of my favorite stories because, and I know I can tell it in many different versions. I'll say, because if I can do this, anyone can. That's the message. That's the message of any of it. You have it. My favorite question is like, well, are these people, are you just gifted? Well, all right. Are you a spiritual being? Even in pride, most people are not going to say no. Are you a spiritual being? Well, no, they're going to say, well, I think so. And the answer is, then you have spiritual energy by definition. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I wish I had approached it that way, but as you're aware, I lost a bet. I was a associate director at Ernst & Young. I was solutions engineering director for pretty much the entire world of communications as well as data centers. So anything that came in, a new system, a new application, we would design all the systems behind it, deploy it. You mentioned some of my background in the military. I really was a satellite communications specialist with the US Army. I did some work with NASA on wing design, also in some satellite communication work. So we can't continue, in my view, to think of science and spirituality as separate, because every single thing that takes place is energy. Every single thing. And it really is the behavior of energy. The reason why we talk about what we do, how we do it, we talk about psychic work, we talk about sensitivity. That's the simplest thing to talk about. Being sensitive, having the vibes of the person who walks in the room, having the feeling or emotions of somebody else. That's an energy exchange. Yes, there is a spiritual discussion on it, but it literally is an electromagnetic energy exchange. You have a field around you, I have a field around you, we now just interacted. My background, you might not think goes with this stuff, but I did find myself in the class that I didn't want to be in, that I lost a bet on a basketball game on, by the way. I had zero interest. I didn't even look it up. I could barely spell Reiki. That's the class I went into. And when the teacher started to discuss the spiritual part of it, I really tried not to roll my eyes. I really did. I don't know if I succeeded, but I tried. My interest, though, was that as soon as she started having a discussion on how Reiki works, I was the person in there saying, oh, you mean this magnetic field exchange? Everyone's looking at me like, what? No, it just happens. Well, I don't know about you. I'm not it is what it is guy. It just happens guy. No, I want to know how it works, because if you really want to talk spiritually and intention, the more you know and can conceive of how something operates, the easier it is to then generate it with your energy. You know how to duplicate it. You understand how to make the parts work. So that was fascinating to me, that the discussion led to me talking about literally quantum physics. Like, wait a minute, this is quantum physics. And they're looking at me, if you say so. But then it all got crazy. And I can tell you, and even my own family has failed to find this. I have not found an example of an intuitive bone in my body before that class. And I was 43 years old. I lost a bet. I walked in there. I closed my eyes for maybe a 15-minute meditation. I open my eyes and I start seeing spirits walking around the room. Now, nobody told me that wasn't part of Reiki. I was like, well, this is kind of cool. All right, if this is true, wait, is it true? Hold on a second. And as you know, I literally accused the teacher of putting something in the water. I said, this is pretty low if you're going to put something in your water to give people visions. And she looked at me and said, what are you talking? Oh, and laughed and walked away. It clicked with her saying, I just declared that I was seeing and had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
I was a little upset, but that entire class and then that entire day changed my life in ways I'm still learning, and not in a way that says we are completely altered. One of the things that some people don't understand about the spiritual journey, it's not an or, it's an and. It's a together. It's not, I was Jeff aerospace engineer and now I'm Jeff healer. And no, the experiences you have, the knowledge you have, the wisdom you've gained is exactly how you apply it in your new spiritual journey. What are you supposed to do with it? How do you conceive of it? Just for those who are familiar with the chakras, the energy nodes of the body, I'm still going to say the most critical for anything you do, I don't care if it's spiritual, I don't care if you're getting a new job, is the sacral. If you cannot conceive or imagine that you can do it, you'll never do it. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's going to college. I don't care if it's getting that job you always wanted. If you cannot imagine yourself doing it, if you cannot conceive of the way to do it, you'll never create the energy to move yourself in that direction. And by the way, it wasn't the energy moving part that was fun. It was the seeing part. So I said, all right, well, let me find out what else I can do with this. Am I right? It freaked me out how right I was, because then I really can't say too much about the water being spiked. But I went with it. I give myself a lot of credit for it. One of the interesting parts about the universe is that when you finally hit that path, you have no idea how much they're going to support you. When people in what you'd say might be closed from let's say a computer technician standpoint, suddenly start saying things like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. Oh, good, thank you. But the way you tell your story, Jeff, I think you have a lot of work to do. What? What? Who's talking now? And we know that wasn't that person talking. That was knocking, saying, excuse me, are you finally listening? We're just going to use somebody else because you don't listen to us. We're going to get you somebody else. The more we get through that information, the more we stop worrying about the definition, we start integrating who we are into this. And I'm telling you, everything I do with energy is based on the science of it. So you can find your own path for defining how it works. Why not? Because then it's yours. You claim it. It wasn't, oh my God, why did I waste 43 years of my life? It was, oh my God, was I being trained for 43 years until I was finally ready?
And notice they didn't make you.
They highly encourage through unusual sources.
I'm thinking, and your word choices are a little too polite because I'm way more stubborn. I'm way more stubborn than that. I agree that they didn't make me. They don't make any of us, because why would you have a committed person if you think they're just a puppet, or you think they're controlled, or you think they're influenced? But I know if they came along and said, well, you need to do this, I'd say, no, you don't get to tell me what to do. That's how stubborn I am. I'm my own person. They went, oh, yeah, we know. That's why we got to finally get this to you. But it was an experience that has completely opened up new ways, not necessarily new knowledge, new ways to explore the knowledge I already have, as well as completely new ways of helping people that I am still cherishing to this day.
So, for those of our listeners who have a really scientific mind, how would you describe Reiki to someone who is more scientifically geared to understanding how energy works? How would you describe Reiki to that person?
Well, first off, many times when we have that spiritual to science communication, we don't speak the same language. And it's a shame that sometimes that language barrier is the problem. Because if I have a judgment when you start talking, okay, well, I'm going to bring in my angels. Oh, here we go. Hold on. What does it mean? Stop worrying about the words and start worrying about the behavior of energy. That's how I describe it. In fact, the first thing I do is, so when you have an infection and you go to the doctor and you get antibiotic, yes, okay. Do you go find out how it works? And you get this long pause. No. All right. So when you go to when you have family members, unfortunately, who do develop cancer and they're going through chemotherapy and radiation, do you go study what chemotherapy does? Well, sometimes, but do you study how it operates? Do you understand why people talk about losing hair and inner mouth cells? No. So then let's talk Reiki. If you're looking at the body having a frequency of every different organ having a frequency, the body is created of electricity going all the way down the nerves. The cells are generating energy for healing, for process, for food consumption. What we do with Reiki is then the same thing you're doing with all the rest of those things. You're introducing a new behavior to remind the body of how it should be behaving. And if that's a medication, if that's acupuncture, if that's healing Reiki, if that's physical therapy, you're telling the body to get back to its standard balance. With Reiki, it's harder to sometimes explain how it works, but it truly is the summoning and channeling of energy, just like you're summoning and creating energy in a pill or in a vibration. And what I really try to do is say, if you want to understand it, experience it, because then the changes doesn't matter. And that's my favorite thing in our center. That's what we want to do at the center. That's what we want to do at Dimensions, even with our remote clients, classes, everything, is give that person that experience that no one's ever going to take away. You guys have had that, I know. Every one of us that has had this awakening has had that one first thing that goes, oh God, what just happened? I don't care. I don't care how you define it. What is it? And will anyone take it away from you? No. Then, if you're getting results and you're showing improvement, then it's up to the person to decide what Reiki means to them. But it's always saying, well, what else do you have to lose? In fact, I also use usually I use the people's words against them and say, so when you go to the doctor, you do realize he or she's working in a medical practice, right? What? They're practicing on you. And what happens when the medication doesn't work? You go get another one. What happens when this doesn't work? You go to a specialist. They're trying to help you with your symptoms, but it's a medical practice. And if your symptoms or your body or your energy is different than most, you're not going to have the same reaction. So why aren't you looking for what is going to give you the reaction you want? And then it's this long pause of thought and saying, well, maybe it's really what I want to try. It's like, that's okay. It's totally up to you. But think about what you have agreed to and then what you don't want to agree to. Well, that's totally your decision. And my science background of transferring energy and describing how the behavior of the medicines work and the radiation works usually encourages someone to at least give it a try.
And I think that you're bringing up an interesting point. That's why I do a lot of scientific studies, is we're now bridging, seemingly from the separation of spirituality and quantum physics, now becoming spiritual physics, unification, not separation.
Oh, God, about time.
And in that quantum field, how does energy, in this case Reiki, transfer to another person at a distance?
Well, we talked earlier about me feeling like I was being trained. What did I do in the military? Satellite communication. What do you do with a satellite? You send it all the way across the other side of the earth into a specifically addressed location. That's pretty much what Reiki's doing distance-wise or even in person. I also don't really differentiate a lot between distance and in person because, frankly, in my Reiki practice, I never touch the person anyway. So 4 inches versus 50 miles doesn't matter to me. I'm not touching you, so there's no direct exchange. Your energy field has its own specific frequency. We talk about it all the time. You have an address. You have a cell phone address. You have a hardware address of your computers for wireless. Your body has an address too. Same thing. What we practice in Reiki is more how do we figure out how to address this energy to you? Sending it's just a bigger, stronger signal. How do we pump that out? But it really is how do we get it to the person? My entire approach with Reiki still includes, as you mentioned, I like that phrase. I'm going to use it, spiritual physics. Because if you look at the behavior of the atom, atoms are not physical. They are completely made up of energy. They're not solid. Every single subatomic particle, especially when you start looking at the theories of the subatomic particles, has a wave and a particle duality. It's two different things because you can't guarantee it, you can't separate it. I don't need to get too deep into it, but if every atom is made up of a oscillating vortex of energy, if I add 1 degree of temperature to that, it changes behavior by the laws of physics. Mm-hmm. So if I add heat, very simple energy, it spins faster, let's say. So if that spins faster, the subatomic particles are changing for a different makeup. The atom's changing. The cells are changing. The molecules are changing. The organs changing. There is no definition of energy change that isn't based on how do you introduce something new to trigger the cells to behave as they need to be. So when we talk about stress and anxiety, that's often removing stuff, too much excess energy from people. The healing process in the physical level is still triggering that knee, triggering that shoulder to do its job. But we do it with medication, we do it with radiation, we do it vibration. You know, people talk about they love sound baths, they love all these different opportunities of introducing energy into their energy field. Sometimes people just don't understand that's what they're doing. So we want to look at it from a science perspective to say, well, you're doing it anyway, and every change you do. 1 degree temperature can change water to steam. 1 degree removal, water to ice. How is it any different than one level of energy changing the body in the same way the body wants to change to get back into balance?
You know, I think you're bringing up an interesting point to myself in this. You keep referring as energy, energy, energy. And to me, that's why I'm doing a lot of studies is let's put the practicality of this. And I say I'm not a doctor, not a scientist, nothing. But I believe that they found, and this scientific stuff is starting to validate ancient esoteric, we're eternal beings kind of thing. And I say the fact that they've basically found that humans are energy, vibrational light beings. And with that definition of being energy, in quantum physics, they found that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. But then I say, but wait a minute. If that means in a very scientific, quantifiable way that we are eternal and we have always been, and yet this universe has only been here for 13.8 billion years, yeah, we may not be from this universe.
It starts to make you question a lot of things. And thank you for that, by the way, because I know in my teachings, I try to use words very specifically. Because if the definition is accurate and complete, the laws of physics are telling us that this energy just didn't suddenly spring up somewhere. It was formed, it was created, it might have transformed into something dimensionally new. It might have, but that's no different than how we do mediumship readings or how we read the psychic energy around people. We're shifting dimensionally, we're shifting frequency-wise. Why wouldn't then our entire creation approach actually be a transformative approach? Why aren't we transforming all the time rather than thinking this source is suddenly, here's the beginning? No, we can have a beginning of this phase. Doesn't mean that the phase is not going to change at any given point going forward.
And we are transforming all the time. every breath of life,
Oh, I
every
hope so.
moment is so different than the one you just had. And if we can just remember, you know what? Every time I take a breath, it's a different moment than the one before or any other moment I've ever had. It allows us to be a little bit more fluid, I think, and a little bit more transformative with the energy that we are holding or wanting to let go of or wanting to create and manifest in our lives.
I think we talk about the breath of life. And I always say, to me, we live our entire life in one breath. For when we come in, we breathe in. And when we go out, we breathe out. The trick is to breathe and you'll live. And realizing that we're the eternal beings, and this is not the only dimension, not the only universe, all that kind of good stuff.
Right.
Has that allowed you to find more of yourself, more of your spiritual awareness that's always been within, and being able to bring it to the surface of consciousness to share those gifts? What got you to do this professionally?
I like the conversation about the eternal energy because I think that's one of the big triggers that wanted me to kick myself more into the Reiki practice and the depths and research of it. Because Reiki, a lot of people think, well, or maybe they've been shown that Reiki is healing. Well, no, Reiki is a summoning and creation or a channeling, of energy. What you do with it, cleansing, healing. Heck, I send Reiki into the restaurant to make sure my food's good. What's the difference? If I can send energy to transform something, it's not necessarily limited to healing. There's a part in Reiki at the level 2 discussions that includes time-based healing. That's usually a hard concept for many students unless you step back and go down the road that Jamie was talking about. And actually Maggie was talking about those breaths of every moment we get to change. Think about energy. If we're going to talk fifth dimension, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is energy sitting outside of time. It's not restricted to time because it is a gigantic timeline of infinite length. So why does it really matter how long you've had that emotional trauma, even in just this life? It's a blob. I call it, that stuff you want to clean out of your filters anyway. Just because it's been 30 years since it took place, it doesn't mean you cannot remove it and remove it completely right now. And funny enough, if we talk, my spiritual journey, that's what resonated first. That's because I'm a scientist and everyone's looking at me, don't you just want to get into the energy? No, I'm so fascinated by this getting outside of time when you can literally start working in past energy healing, past life healing. And what many people underestimate is just how much you can do future healing. Why not? What's the difference? It's sliding up and down the timeline. If your energy is sitting outside of time, then why aren't we looking at how do you influence yourself in the future? I call it, in fact, here's an example. I had a client back in my office in New Jersey who was very upset after a divorce. It had been a couple of years, but her son was getting married and she was so proud. But she felt like everybody, all their friends sided with him because it was her choice to get the divorce. And I don't know we all know what really possessed me. I said, I don't know what's popped in my mind to do this. And I said, yeah, I know, I hear you. But what I decided was, you know what? I'm going to try this whole new invention I came up with, my words anyway, an energetic time bomb. What? An energetic time bomb. Like, I don't understand. Well, if I can go and you're comfortable, because she has had some good results, in helping remove some of your past strain and stress from your family. Yeah, I felt good about that. Good. Why can't I program a time bomb that when you walk into the reception hall, it goes off and you have positivity and you have joy and you have confidence? And she said, you can do that? I said, well, why are you okay with the past, but not okay with the future? If it's all the same and we're sitting in this moment creating energy, what's the difference? I said, well, I don't understand how it works. I said, why? Do you really think that your alarm clock is a timepiece? No, it's a counter. It goes off when then is now. But it's if your counter is 3 minutes slow, or you're not on the right time anymore. It's just a counter. So why can't I create an energy ball with a time bomb explosion that triggers as soon as you walk into the room? She came back, and I had forgotten I did this, by the way. She came back a few weeks later, and it's like, oh my God, that was fantastic. I'm like, what was fantastic? Oh, that's right, the wedding. How was it? It's like, you don't remember, do you? And I said, no. Do you remember the time bomb? Oh my God, the time bomb. That's right. How did it go? She said, Jeff, I walked in there and I was already crunched up with all my nerves. And as soon as I stepped through the door, I felt your energy. Wait, you felt my energy? I know it. You've worked on me. I know the change. The whole thing exploded. And she goes, I was the queen. No one even talked to him. Everyone came to my table. I said, well, I didn't want to do that. But these kinds of these kinds of experiences then hopefully lead us to start questioning how important is the management of energy to everything we do throughout an entire spiritual existence. And for me, I define our lifetime as a soul with ego and experiences, and our spiritual timeline is in our entire energetic journey, kind of the Akashic Records view of spirit. So why not then take advantage of this whole truly being outside of time in our dimension, like you talked about earlier, and influencing everything you want? Why aren't we taking advantage of that? And I don't care how spiritual you are. I don't care what you want to argue. I don't care how much you believe. I care that why aren't you taking advantage of all the tools that are sitting at your disposal to improve yourself?
Absolutely.
That's what triggered me.
Totally. And I was just talking to Jamie the other day. I was like, I still am sending energy to parts of my life that were really stressful, or where I was really fatigued, but I didn't have the time to sleep more, or whatever was going on. Right. I literally, when I recall the memories of those, I send that time bomb to the past. I'm like, I'm going to go fuel myself. If I remember that, why am I remember that? Maybe I was asking energy for my future self, so I'm going to send it in the past. And again, we create future memories for those time bombs to go off as well. We just did a podcast episode on creating a future memory so that that time bomb energy is going forward. So we love that whole approach to timelessness, because honestly, if we can wrap our heads around that here now on this planet, everything is at our disposal. Everything, our whole soul print of consciousness, every lifetime we've ever lived, anything that we could do or possibly think of doing with our energy is possible.
I keep asking, why not?
Exactly.
Right.
There's not a why here.
Right.
People like you talked about, let's say past trauma. That's one of the big things I do a lot of work on. And a lot of people say, well, does it really change? And my answer is, do you really care? Do you feel better about it now? Yes. If I can remove a lot of that energy that's still sitting on you from it, yeah. Why not? Why? It's not doing anything that's going to harm you. Plus, if it's no better, then you're no worse off than you were. Why aren't you looking at the tools that are going to give you at least those options for how do you create not just that past change, but that future energy? I mean, it's no different than many of the things I talk about in terms of the law of attraction. If you're really practicing a law of attraction, when you say, yes, I know I have this, that's outside of time. You're just waiting for time to catch up.
Yep.
You're not saying, oh my God, I want this. No. You know you have it. You already have manifested it. You're waiting for time to catch up for the manifestation, or you need an additional energy change to influence time. Okay, great. But your entire approach still says, I already have this in some part of my timeline. Use it. But why not then take the tools to say, well, can I make this faster? Can I attract it more? Can I get my energy bigger in order to bring and attract magnetically even more?
I think you bring up an interesting point of the past, present, and future. I always use an example because I'm right there with you. It's just a counter. There is no time. But I always say, I'll do presentations on Zoom or whatever I'm doing, and sometimes I'll have somebody tune in from Australia, which is about 17 hours in the future or ahead of us as we perceive it, or someone who's coming in from the Hawaiian Islands, which is a couple of hours in the past as we perceive it. Yet, on the internet web, like the universal web, the past, present, and future are happening now. The future can learn from the past can learn from the future, giving you the gift of living in the present. And another dynamic, as you were kind of sharing that, is I've done some meditations and visualizations where I've gone back to a younger me. I gave myself insight and information. And the interesting thing is when I reflect back on when I was a child, people treated me differently. And it wasn't always the most productive. And I think to myself, you have no idea who I might be. I didn't know who I freaking was. But in doing that and going to from the future as we perceive it, because we're the future to our past and the past to our future, it's all now, but giving myself the empowerment of knowledge, of information. I wanted to have some fun with this. And my mom and I have written children's books. We wrote them like 30-something years ago.
Right.
And so I wanted to kind of see if I could get any other dynamics with that. So I went back to a younger me and I started describing the books and the fun for the kids' books and all that kind of stuff. And when I came out of the meditation, bing, another episode dropped into my mind about the adventures.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, that's freaking brilliant. I'm teaching myself. That's the point.
That's a great example of something I try to teach others. Most of our teaching, have you noticed? I think you have, but have you noticed that most of your teaching is not necessarily the spiritual part? It's how do you get the person's mindset into it? How do I get you actually doing it yourself? That has nothing to do with what the spirituality part is. Yes, you need to be able to conceive of that, but how do you get in the right mindset to even create the energy to do it? Think about that person who says, oh, God, if I only knew back then what I know now. And my answer is, imagine if you could. What? Yes. If you're going to do energy healing in the past or anything like that of energy in the past, what if you could trigger that? What do you mean? It's I can't go back in time. Well, okay, that's something I wouldn't necessarily agree on because you're looking at maybe physically transporting yourself, which, you even argue that in terms of capabilities. But why wouldn't you energetically be able to tap into those younger parts of you? They're already you. You know exactly who you are. You know exactly how to tap in. You know the exact dates half the time that you're looking for. That kind of shared knowledge is something that many people overlook in their own journeys of how they can then improve themselves now. Well, if you can do that, why wouldn't you give yourself some of those hints or guidance or even knowledge, like you mentioned, for transforming yourself for your future?
Right.
The question is always, why not?
I feel like I should just put that like an IVR on my phone. If you're here to have a question, hit 3. Why not? just play it all the time. If you think if you're asking if you should learn Reiki, hit 3, push 3. Why not? Just say it all the time, because what's it going to do except give you a new tool set? Do you want to become psychic? Do you want to become more sensitive? The CEOs of great companies are often evaluated by their, like we talked about the military. The CEOs are also evaluated by their intuition. Those, and I'll talk tech, the big, the 3-4 big companies, they know exactly what the cost margins are. They know exactly how much it costs. Every proposal is probably exactly the same. They want to make the same amount of money, and they know they only have a certain amount of expenditure. So what's the CEO doing? Everything's the same. They're using their intuition. They're using their guidance. They're using their experience, but their experience still comes from, then how have I evaluated this before, and how am I going to evaluate it now intuitively? Well, and when they're right, they're making sometimes millions or billions. So because they can do it repeatedly. That's why they talk about meditating. That's why, the top CEOs everywhere are talking about meditation, that time of calm and that time of looking for resources, because that's what their job is, to get the answer. Don't care how. They care that their answer is going to be correct enough, often enough.
It better be right. You can throw all you want. But in addition...
or else they're out. But they're using all the tools at their disposal.
And the major corporations are not silly. I work with a few major corporations, billion-dollar companies, who come to me for energy reads about the people that they're hiring.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, will these people work together? In what capacity? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And because thankfully I'm usually very accurate with reading that information, if they're not productive, that saves that company 4 months of training that's $65,000.
Yes.
And so the good thing is once you're accurate, then it's like, whoa, either that's really good guesswork or I don't know, something to it. And when they can have those actions, and in this case, refine and define their abilities of connections with the people that they have a potential to work for, really just kind of clears it out to go, you're not going to have to waste your time with this, and realize, see, you were right. What you felt wouldn't happen didn't happen. And so when they can get the validation that, in this case, me, Joe Schmo, who doesn't know them or any of the people, and all I'll do is just, can I have their first name? That's it. Just want a label. That's it. That's soul print of consciousness. And be able to usually be very accurate with personalities, interactions, potential of growth, and a variety of other things.
And look what you just asked. You asked for their address.
Yeah, exactly.
You
IP
ask for
address
their
on the
address.
internet web?
Just my name. Yep.
SP address.
Just the name.
Yes.
You know, like sometimes when I do readings, I just ask for a relationship. Don't tell me a name. Just tell me how they're connected to you in some way. If you're looking for something specific, then, you know, I sometimes laugh at the fact that it is the spirit web. We talked about the spirit net of internet parallels. Sometimes people are also almost too open, because if you know how to address them, how to find their address, a lot of times you get entire volumes of what their energy is radiating out every single day. So it becomes that toolkit addition that many companies look for. And I'm telling you, especially where you have some of that more integrated spirituality in the East or in the Southern Hemisphere, they incorporate that into their business models. They have lawyers that are engaging psychics. You know, they are looking at these things as every opportunity includes every advantage. So if you're going to have an advantage, why not take it? Why not use it? It's there. It really does develop into, I don't want to say a behind the scenes work, because I really think it should be everybody taking advantage of it all the time. You have it. It's there. Say it again, Maggie. Why not?
Why not? And you mentioned how important meditation was to be able to like quiet the mind and receive those intuitive impressions, the psychic information, all of it. And you have a meditation room at your new store, Dimensions of Heaven and Earth in Scottsdale, Arizona. So in your opinion, how do you feel that people can approach meditation to help improve all of the things that we're talking about, and really just connect into that timelessness, into their intuition, and be able to really improve their lives or whatever they want to be improving or working with?
If you're like me, I can barely keep my mouth shut. I certainly can't keep my mind shut. It keeps going and going. One of the, in my view only, one of the fallacies of the idea of meditation is that you have to quiet your mind. There are multiple ways to take meditation on. I personally enjoy the guided meditation part. And it's not just someone, you know, talking about the visualizations. You're actually giving your logical mind something to do while your intuitive mind is tapping in. So you're giving, it's not just tuning it out. It's allowing, you know, envision this, do this, do this, do this. And on the side, you get the, oh my gosh, but this happened. Yes. We're letting your mind not get in your own way. Some people have mastered that quiet, but notice it's mastering the quiet. It's not being quiet. It's mastering the fact that they can turn it off. So they physically or mentally have to do something to maintain that quiet. But they're still doing something with their logical mind that's giving it an activity, even if it's just quiet, in order to allow that intuitive message to come. I mean, even readings, you'll watch a lot of people get so worried about their first couple of readings that sometimes we talk about, you know what, take this rock and just play with your hand. Why? Because you're going to be embarrassed if you drop it, but then you're not going to be thinking about the reading. You're going to be allowing yourself to tune in as your physical mind, your logical mind's doing something with your hands. Finding those techniques are the keys to really successful meditations. What works for you? It's going to be different for you. It's going to be different for me. We might have different thought process. We might evolve. That's the other thing about the spiritual journey. Allow yourself to change. We talk about it all the time. You're going to have a different reading. You're going to have a different thought. Your sensitivity might change. Go with it. Find out if something's growing. Find out if something altered, because then you're not frustrating yourself when it changes. But it's no different with the meditation. When we at Dimensions are doing meditations, most people are liking, so far, knock on wood, that we give them something to do. We give them a purpose. Like, rather than doing meditation and saying, okay, we're just going to meditate, we have a purpose of gratitude. In fact, when we talked about the sacral chakra and creativity, we just did a meditation for projects. People are like, what? A project? What do you think creativity is? What do you think passion is? What do you think clear communication is? What do you think intuition is? Why not give it a reason? Give yourself a function that in the real world, I think we're in the real world, some people are not. In the real world, how are you going to apply this? How do you sit down in your home and then say, oh, you know what? I really want to come up with this new product that maybe I want to have a trademark on. Well, how would you do that if you cannot conceive of it? Well, charge yourself up in the entire intention of every chakra for the project you're working on. Use all your tools at your disposal. A lot of people like that because then suddenly they're going, oh, wow, I just had this whole new intuition. I had this whole new thought. Well, why aren't you? Isn't that the idea of getting your thinking mind out of the way and allowing yourself to truly focus? Some people have mastered that quiet, but they're still quiet on purpose. They're not quiet in a mind of meditation. Is not, oh my God, nothing's happening. Oh my God, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. It's still not happening. Why is it not happening? That's not quiet at all. It's not even allowing yourself to bring in the other intuitive information you might be getting anyway. You're interrupting your signal every time. So you can really work on what it means to quiet your mind actively rather than passively, or you can work with guided information that says, let me give you a tool. Let me give you a focus, even if it's a visualization. But I prefer, if you don't feel like you're getting the intuitive part of the meditation, at least you cleaned your chakras. At least you changed your project. At least you got something energetically out of that meditation and you feel better about how you can do it the next time. And it continues to evolve.
Talking about the chakras, a number of years ago, I'd love to be entertaining and informative, but I was doing a show and I was interviewing up in Sedona a gentleman that was the keeper of the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. Basically, it's a crystal skull. It's been carved and has a detachable jaw and all that kind of good stuff, and goes by the name of Love. Well, we were standing in the creek area as it was going by, and then Bill Holman is the gentleman's name, who he let me touch the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. As soon as I touched that, all of my chakras went white. I'm like, what the frig? I'm used to the red, orange, green, blue, that kind of stuff. And then I asked my master guide, Chi, I'm like, Chi, what's going on? Why did all of my chakras go white and not the other colors? And he shared the fact that, well, Jamie, they're very productive. However, on that spectrum of the red you're reading through one color. The unification of all the chakras can get even streamlined no matter what chakra you process it through. And I was like, oh, that's freaking brilliant. But for me to have that change, my acclimation and activation was touching that skull. And it was just, it just happened. Wow. That was huge. But it also gave me the ability to do the best I can. Yeah, and kind of going along the lines of meditation. I've been doing meditation my whole life. But to me, the main reason of meditation is to know when you're thinking your own thoughts and when you're picking up someone else's. Because a lot of people are like, I don't know what's my stuff or theirs. And then they start wearing the energy. I'm like, well, frick that. I don't do that. I'm lazy.
That's an explanation of why most people talk about white light for their exercises. Because frankly, white light's all the colors.
Mm-hmm. All inclusive.
So, and when we talked about why not, it applies to everything. Like what Jamie just described in terms of the white light in all the chakras as an activation. Why wouldn't you use all of your chakras to cleanse one? Why wouldn't you use all those energies of purpose? Because each one of them, if we're really looking at the different functions, why wouldn't you use them for that? Like that project discussion I talked about. The project meditation was taking grounding, taking confidence, taking truth communication, and applying it to your creativity. Why not? Why are you not using everything that your body's capable of generating energy-wise to function in that way? That white then says, why figure out all the different ones? Send it all. Send that one big column of energy down and use it. I'm totally in support of experimentation. Sometimes I feel disappointed that people don't get that. And I know, believe me, the spirituality part is work. It really is. You continue, especially when you're changing, you've got to keep staying on top of everything that changes with you, what your moods are, how you oscillate in bad, good days, whatever you're doing. But if you don't allow for change, you don't allow for trying something new, how would you ever know it's not better? How would you ever know it doesn't work for you better? If your energy is, we have this ego of look how unique we are, but we don't take advantage of our uniqueness by exploring. Well, then what are everything else that might help me? One of my biggest examples is the practice of Reiki itself. I talk about it a lot because I really want to teach the idea of variability. In fact, I challenge my students and I laugh, and they laugh too when they say, "No, Jeff, I'm being guided to do it this way." I said, "Yeah, of course you are. I'm just this guy sitting on this side of the desk. I'm not the end all be all of your definition of you. If I tell you to do this with your hands, and every time you want to go like this, you better do it that way. Because the teacher told you not to do it. I repeated that. In fact, I scolded you as a joke. And you stepped up and said, no, I feel this is the right way and I don't know why. Then you better do it that way because you're going to find out why. Why aren't we taking that chance of exploring new ways to use our gifts? Even if it's just scientific exploration, like chemistry. Chemistry is the easiest way to do that. You have 5 things are the same. The 6th thing you change. If it doesn't work out, you don't worry about it. If it changes, great. Did you improve something? Did you alter something? Is it better? At least you found that something doesn't work as well as it could have. But you're not taking advantage of your own energy growth and strengthening if you're not retrying your procedures in new ways. So being able to meditate differently, connect spiritually differently, send healing differently, well, you have to be willing to take those risks. And who's going to care if, I talk numbers all the time. So who's going to care if your Reiki is 75% versus 85%? The person sitting on the table is not going to know. They have no idea what you're doing. They just know you're helping them. It's changing. So take advantage of that creativity of what got you where you are in that experience to say, maybe I can find more. Maybe I can expand more. That is exactly how I went from this very reluctant Reiki practitioner to a spirit medium seeing the earthbound stuff, to a Reiki master, to then a psychic. I couldn't even use it. By the way, I don't know if you guys made up words on your journey. I started making stuff up on my journey because I couldn't admit it.
What do you mean?
I was not psychic. I was an energy sensitive. That's called denial. That's called
right.
Forget it.
Because everyone's psychic. Label on it. Yeah.
I was like, no. I'm not psychic. I'm an energy sensitive. This is just Reiki. Until I didn't have to open a Reiki energy anything, and I was doing it. I really can't call myself energy sensitive because I'm just denying I'm psychic. The problem, the gift. You know me, I'm stubborn. The problem was that as soon as I said I was psychic, I started seeing dead people.
Right.
Okay. That's not fair. I just got used to calling myself psychic. So what? I'm the one who's stubborn. All the way up through, and this stuff is real. I like to make sure I caution people. I am a spirit rescue medium as well. I didn't want to say the word exorcist because I knew what it would take, and I've done that. But in no difference to anything else I've done, it is energy.
Right.
What are you doing with it? How are you changing it? What are you focusing on? But if you can imagine not wanting to be on this journey and defining yourself at every milestone differently, don't be a Jeff. Don't sit there and limit yourself every single time something happens. because you're not going to allow yourself the next step. And if you really, and Jamie, you said this earlier, they didn't make me do anything. They opened up the opportunity probably about 75 times because my head's still bruised from all being hit over the head. But we are the one who has to walk through the door. They can only show us the door. It's a great quote. If you're not walking through the door saying why not only are you potentially missing out, but boy, are you lengthening the problem. You are taking way too much time and struggling with yourself when you could have potentially smoothed right through this and said, all right, let's get to the end and move on. I completely recommend that experimentation. Just like you want to learn more knowledge in your own career, in your own hobbies, you want to get more skills, try new things. You've got to do it in your spirituality too, because you have no idea what's next to tap into.
Beautiful. So I want to encourage everyone to check out dimensionsofheavenandearth.com. You can join some of these classes, and then also you can enjoy all of my jewelry line there. So don't forget spirit code SPIRIT10. We'll put it in the show notes. And if you want to learn more about how to really wrap your head around what this conversation has been about and Jeff's approach, I want to encourage you to check out his book, which is on his website, Discovering Intention, A Sensitive Guide to the Engineering Mind. So if you really want to dig in a little bit more and you have that engineering mind and you want to wrap your head around it, would highly recommend this book so that you can hear it from more of a scientific point of view and discover the intention that goes into this.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but thinking about what I just discussed, even the title of that book was a declaration I didn't want to make.
Right.
I was discussing an engineer's guide to the sensitive mind. Do you know how many times I typed that and never finished it? You want to hear someone knocking? You want to hear universe saying, excuse me? No, you're a sensitive with an engineering mind, not an engineer with a sensitive mind. I wrote it God knows how many times. It really does allow yourself to categorize. But if you can truly consider, create, imagine the why not part of it, try it. Try it and see what's going on. My approach, and thank you for that, my approach still sits there and says, here's the logic behind it. Here's how the process is. I could sit there kicking and screaming and never want to do this stuff and losing a bet and still come out of it going, wow, this is probably the biggest transformation of positive energy in my entire life. Why can't you?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jeff. Nice. This has been an honor and a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful. I look forward to more.
Yeah, I've got so many questions. I think, well,
like I can talk a lot, so yes.
Well, that's beautiful. I always say, the more I know, the more I know. I don't know nothing, man, but I'll share my perspective. And how can people get a hold of you?
I'm at dimensionsofheavenearth.com. We are in the Ancala Village Shopping Center. The Dimensions of Heaven and Earth, now that we're officially open, is ready to really want to give people those experiences. So we are at 11108 North Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard, store E16, plenty of parking. But we want you to come in there with that why not attitude, and let's see how we really work together to activate you, not activate me. I have examples galore, but how do we get you in that view of why not?
Excellent. And that's in Scottsdale, Arizona. So when you guys are visiting, if you're from out of town or if you're in state, check it out. Thank you so much, Jeff. This has been great.
Nice conversation.
Thank you for hosting.
Are you looking to form a deeper and richer connection to your higher self? Make that dimensional bridge of consciousness a reality in your life. Join us with Infinite Healing from the Stars, that's Vivian Chavette and Peter Benson, and the Psychic Evolution team gathering together in a beautiful spiritual center in Sedona, Arizona, with these beautiful vortex energies and red rocks. And here we're going to learn quantum ways to communicate to your higher self. Discover your soul's purpose, activate your third eye, clear your channels, and enjoy messages from Jamie Clark and astrology to help activate your higher self in psychic connections. It is going to be out of this world when you're experiencing Beyond Quantum Healing with Vivian Chavette. We look forward to seeing you in Sedona on January 20th through 23rd. of 2023. Visit psychicevolution.net to get your tickets. We look forward to seeing you there and having fun with our psychic evolution.